which is why Sergeant Q and I got together and really have a heart for this podcast, because we have both individually and collectively put a lot of effort in our own mental health and our growth.
So if you care about your mental health, you need to invest in it. You need to spend time and money working on your mental health.
Wow. So like if there was an app that did this right. And it could send you like a, hey, do your breathing exercise. It's Tuesday at 12 o'clock and in 3 hours, your emotional thermometer is going to go up. Is there going to be something like that?
Yes. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
All right, so today we've got a great episode for you guys. We're going to talk about the mental health crisis in America. It's something that has been going on actually for about a decade, but nobody has really talked about it until 2020, where it first started to come to the forefront, and now you can't ignore it. It is everywhere in everything that we see, everything that we do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how you can navigate through it. We're also going to talk about how you can leverage some new school and old school ways to manage your mental health. So the new advancement that we see in the medical field are these predictive analytics, especially with AI. So we were doing predictive analytics before, but now with the advancement of AI, it just becomes more robust and we can do it a lot faster. And so they're using this in cardiology, radiology, for cancer treatments. All of these different disciplines are now using predictive analytics and AI, and the mental health side is doing the same thing. So the mental health industry is using predictive analytics. It's something that we built into our app, Q Actual, as well. But you don't need that. You could use old school methods too, and we're going to show you how you can do that. So tell us a little bit about our tool for our toolbox, Jess.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit this morning about healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I will also break that down to layman's terms, like how you deal with stress and what started that path, how to unlearn some of those negative things and relearn new things. And then we'll talk about that and we'll kind of go through something in our practical as well with you.
And so Jess is learning some new things as well, because usually I have to break it down for everybody, but she's learning to do that.
I anticipated that. And hopefully when you're talking about these new AI current event stuff and analytics, you'll break that down for me because I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh, you're not going to break it down for the audience?
No, because I don't know what you're saying at all. He has to take that one.
All right. So stay tuned with us, you guys. It's going to be a great episode. You guys are going to learn a lot. And if you like this content that we're putting out, please share it with your friends and family. These are some great talking points. You can subscribe and share it out on all the different socials. Grab our RSS feed, share it with a friend.
RSS
great
feed?
way. RSS feed.
Yeah. No, I don't. I have no idea what that is.
The RSS stands for really simple. What is it, Casey?
Is it syndicate?
Syndication. Really. So RSS means really simple syndication. So it's basically the audio file link, and for us video as well, that goes out, makes it really easy for people to listen on whatever device they have. That's the RSS.
Oh, okay.
So it's the really simple syndication.
Which sounds very not simple.
Right. Well,
okay.
Syndication used to be really difficult.
What is syndication?
When you would take a program and you'd put it nationally across TV. That's to syndicate a show. So you could have a local show in a couple markets, but to syndicate it means that you could put it out in every market.
Oh, yeah. And everybody does that now.
Right. But before you had to have this big network TV.
Oh, it's making sense.
Right.
Now it's really simple.
Now it's okay. That's why it's the RSS, really simple syndication.
Okay.
Anybody can do it, even us, the mental health janitors.
I thought he was going to say me, like calling me stupid. Even you could do it, Jess.
I didn't say that. I'm not disagreeing with your comment. I just didn't say it. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. There's no way you're stupid. Look, you have a degree. You have a master's degree in counseling. They don't give those to idiots.
Now I know what we're going to do for our practical.
All right, stay tuned, guys. We got a great episode for you. So let's talk a little bit about this mental health crisis that the world is experiencing. This is not localized here in Seattle. It's not localized here in the United States. It's a global crisis that we're under. And honestly, the global crisis has been growing. Well, I can't say globally. I can just really speak to the US. Back in the 80s, when Reagan was in office, they shut down all of the mental health hospitals because there was a lot of severe abuse that was happening in those places. There were all kinds of experimentation and abuse. And so his solution was to just shut them all down. These were government-run facilities. Shut all of these down and push all these people out to the street. Well, when they took that infrastructure away, it wasn't great, but when they took it away, all of those people who were getting help, who had severe mental health problems, just ended up homeless on the street, which means there's no government funding. So all of those state and federal run programs were eliminated, and there was no money for several decades afterwards. Just recently, in the past probably 20 years, have they started to invest more money into mental health. So you have some state-run facilities that come up, a lot more private practice that comes up. I know we had a state-run facility here in Washington that was shut down a few years ago, again, because of fraud and abuse. And so those government-run facilities have really gone away, and it's all gone to the private sector. The problem with that is that we had such a gap for such a long period of time of not investing in the infrastructure of mental health in our country that there's far more demand than there is supply.
Yeah.
Which means there's far more people seeking help than people qualified to deliver it. This is a huge problem that we're having in the US and really globally, but I'm just going to speak specifically here in the US. What are your thoughts, Jess?
Yeah, that's really good information that I didn't know before. I have heard podcasts and preachers talk about how, back in the day, if somebody was walking down the street going crazy, we would take them to a facility and then they would be taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. And now they're just running all around Auburn and Seattle. I would also like to piggyback on that, because if that was the 1980s, right, that happened, and that fall of that support and help is also the time, 90s, 2000s, that, as we're going to talk about today, a lot more unhealthy coping skills started entering. So, I mean, fast food started getting a lot more popular, and TV started getting more popular, movies, and then technology has just progressed in a lot of great ways and in a lot of not great ways to add to people's inability to cope with their stress in a healthy way. And so it's like all compounding.
You also look at the war on drugs started back then because people needed relief. There was no infrastructure in place, so they went to the path of least resistance, drugs and alcohol, to try and find some relief for mental health, which just exploded. And you can call me conspiracy theorist if you want, but the CIA is the one who is running drugs into middle America and into the inner cities. It's well documented that the CIA was part of that drug running program with the cocaine epidemic, especially when you look at, inside of LA proper. And so that is not a conspiracy theorist. 20 years ago, if you would have said it, they'd have called you that. But there's been plenty of documents released that the CIA was a big part of that whole problem. With those drugs and alcohol, so easy for people to get and so cheap to be made and distributed, it's difficult to go look for healthy options to solve these mental health issues that you deal with. It's much easier to go through this really quick fix that in the end is detrimental to your life, but in the moment, it doesn't seem like it. You just need some immediate relief. And so we can see all of these things. I'm not saying one caused the other, but there's a direct correlation between these two. And you can see it as the mental health crisis started to grow, so did drug and alcohol. And if you can't remember that far back, maybe you're younger, maybe you can't remember that far back, but you can look just in 2020. When you look at the mental health crisis in America as it began to escalate through COVID and the riots and all of those things, you also had this huge, huge volume of people using methamphetamines and street pharmaceuticals, again, to get relief. Now we have this huge oxy problem on the street. Fentanyl, Oxycontin, all of these super hardcore drugs. But at the same time, the mental health crisis in America is rising, so are these drug epidemics.
Yeah.
I'm not saying one's causing the other. There's not causation, but there's definite correlation, which these two are growing at the same rate. Now, causation, one causing the other, like chicken and egg, honestly, it doesn't even matter. The result is they're both growing at the same rate.
Yeah.
And we can see that.
And really it comes down to healthy and unhealthy coping skills, which is what we're going to talk about today. So.
Right. It fits perfectly. When we look at this, I tell people this. If you value something, you invest in it. If you value your home, you invest in it. You put new paint up, new windows, new curtains. You invest in your home because you care about it. If you care about your business, you invest in it. You buy new products. You create new services. You invest in your business, in the infrastructure to make it run better. If you value your marriage, you invest in it. Mm-hmm. You go on date nights. You pay your spouse compliments. You go to workshops. You go to counseling. You invest. You spend time and money in your home, in your business, and in your marriage because you care about it. It's the same thing with mental health.
Well, yeah. And if you
care about it, you invest in it.
Yeah. And it takes me back to like all the studies and research that have come out about the renter versus owner mentality.
Perfect.
And are you renting space in your mind, or do you like, are you taking ownership of yourself, accountability for yourself? And just like a home, statistics show renters don't, and I've been a renter before, so there's nothing wrong with being a renter. And statistics clearly show that owners take better care of their homes than renters take care of that home.
Right, because they care about it, because it belongs to them. They care about it.
Yeah.
So if you care about your mental health, you need to invest in it. You need to spend time and money working on your mental health. There's no quick fix. There's no magic pill. There's not one book that you're going to read one day and then everything is going to be fine. This has got to be a lifelong goal, and you have to work on it on a regular basis. You have to be investing time and money into your mental health if you want it to improve. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking.
Yeah. Which is why Sergeant Q and I got together and really have a heart for this podcast, because we have both individually and collectively put a lot of effort in our own mental health and our growth, our post-traumatic growth, PTG, that I'm learning in this new book now I'm reading, and we'll talk about it later. It's really good. But I have in the past gotten people ask me to mentor them, and it's because they see the results of the time I've put into myself, and they just want the results. And so I weed out a lot of people when I say, sure, for 3 months, do everything that I've done.
Yeah.
Go read this book, do this every morning, do this for 3 months. If you can keep a log and do everything I've done for 3 months and show me that ownership and the sacrifice and do the hard things that I've had to do to get to where I am in my growth, then we'll talk about mentoring. And 10% do it.
Jess, it's funny. We've never discussed this, but I do that exact same thing because I got burned out on trying to help people and they didn't want to help themselves. And I said, look, I can't want your healing more than you do.
That's good.
And so now I do that same thing. I've put healthy boundaries in place that say, if you want the things that I have, then you have to do the things that I've done.
Yeah.
So do this. And I do one step at a time. I said, do this for 30 days. If you can come back to me and show me in a journal that you've done this for 30 days, then I'll give you step 2. If you miss a day, well, then you start back at day 1. You could be on day 25 and you miss a day, go back and start on day 1 because you need that discipline.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to put that in, and you're right, 10% or less.
Yeah. Or less. Yeah.
And so
that's good.
If that's you today and you're thinking about, hey, I really want to improve my mental health, then you have to be dedicated to it. Invest time and money into it. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. And I know you guys are feeling like we're beating you up today, and we kind of are a little bit, but sometimes you need it. Sometimes these podcasts are fun and funny, and other times we're just going to hit you right in the gut and say, hey, get it together. If we can do it, you can do it. Here's how. But it's up to you. We can give you the tools, and we give you the tools every single week. You have to put them in practice. So if you're just listening to this podcast and you're not hearing it, it's not going deep into your heart, and you're not trying to make fundamental changes, you're really just wasting your time. You have to take action on the things that we're telling you. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Good.
Kind of hard on them today, aren't I?
Yeah.
I know. Whew, I'm feisty. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so that is your current event, the mental health crisis. And I want to take that big mental health crisis and bring it right down to the level, right into your face, into what you're dealing with. And if you want to see changes in this world, the change starts with you and your mental health journey. So take the things that you're learning here and put it into practice.
And that reminds me, Aaron, of another thing that if we really quick go back to like all these things that are adding to and compiling to make this crisis so big and continuing to get worse is like chaos breeds chaos, dysfunction breeds dysfunction. And so history is going to repeat itself. Generations are going to continue to be dysfunctional and chaotic if you don't infiltrate and intentionally break off those dysfunctional, toxic, and chaotic ways of life that you were taught. To your defense, you were taught, and now you're seeing the effects of that, and you're realizing this is not good. And so you have to do the generations to come behind you a service by doing the work now, so we don't repeating these same cycles. So I'm off my soapbox.
No, you're good. That's fantastic. We don't want to continue to perpetuate this crisis that we're in right now. It's our generation. We have a choice to make right now. Do we want to continue going down this negative cycle that we know hasn't worked, that we're seeing is not sustainable? Or do we want to make fundamental change? And here's the problem with change is you want everybody else to change, but you don't want to change.
Why you got to talk about me like that?
It's true.
It is true.
You want everybody else to change, but you don't want to change.
Yeah, it's true. It's in us. It's in every single one of us.
Yeah. And if you keep that attitude at the forefront, that's what got us into this situation.
Yeah.
But if you want the world to change, you have to change.
Ownership mentality. And
then you get 2 or 3 friends together. You say, hey, I want to be better and do better. Let's do this together. And then that exponentially grows. And it's a slow grassroots approach. There's no one book changes everything, one podcast changes everything mentality. It's you working on yourself every day to do better and be better and surrounding yourself with people who want to do the same. That's how we change the world, not by some great orator giving a speech or some new book or new social media, whatever coming out. Yeah. So, all right, let's get back to it, Jess. We could just spend the whole episode just railing on that, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, but we're not going to do that to you guys. We beat you up enough. Now we're going to give you some hope, show you how you can do better and be better with these old school methods for managing your mental health. All right, so let's talk about predictive analytics and AI. So predictive analytics is basically what you're doing is you're looking at all these small little data points. And in a short term, they don't mean anything. You're just collecting these data points. But over a long period of time, I'm talking months and even years of collecting this data diligently, the same time, the same place, the same way, collecting this data points, you can start to see patterns develop in the data. You can start to see patterns develop, which can then tell a story of why these things are happening, why these patterns are emerging, what is happening in your life. So they're using this now, and they've been using it for a while in radiology, in cardiology, in oncology, where they're looking at your heart and the way that it beats. They have sensors now they put in your heart. So if somebody's struggling with heart issues, we have a good friend who was struggling with some heart issues, and they put this little sensor on him, and he had to wear it for like 3 months just to track him all day, every day. How many beats per minute, when he was exercising, when he was running, when he was sleeping, when he was working, like all these different things, morning, noon, and night. It's tracking all these little data points. Those data points don't mean anything until you look at them over a long period of time. Then they start to show a pattern, and you can start to make fundamental changes once you see the pattern. You can say, wow, in the morning, your heart rate just jacks way up. What do you do in the morning? Oh, well, I have a double shot of espresso, and then I get in the car with a Red Bull and I drink it on my way to work. So you're just slamming all this caffeine into your heart and it's beating like crazy, but you're not doing anything. You're just sitting in a car. So that they can recognize that pattern and help the individual start to make fundamental changes, make better choices, right? We're going to talk about. based on the patterns that they see. They can start to ask questions to find out why. So predictive analytics is something they've been using in the scientific field for a long time. Now with AI can help you establish those patterns much faster. It can't tell you why the patterns are there, but it makes looking at those patterns and seeing those patterns, and it can process a lot more data points than we can. So it can process a lot more data points a lot faster and give us the information we need a lot sooner. So that's the advancement with AI and these predictive analytics together. So you see this in the medical field already.
That's super interesting. I think about, it's kind of like what I do with certain clients when I ask them. We've talked probably a couple months ago now. We talked about the emotional thermometer.
Yes.
And how I ask certain clients, like for the first month of meeting with me, I need you to check in morning, afternoon, and night, where you're at on your, so we can track. Oh my gosh, every Tuesday afternoon, I'm way up. I wonder why. And we can look back and be like, oh, that's the day I have to go to my mother-in-law's to pick up something. I don't know. And
pick up your kid or something.
Yeah. And okay, so now we can go in and, be proactive to help that number come down. That's like analytics.
That's exactly
what you're talking about.
So that's analytics. So predictive analytics. And so I didn't get into this. I was going to let you talk about what you do. And this is perfect because it segues right into now the predictive analytics, because we know we can start to see, like every Tuesday, we know that you're elevated, right? So we can predict in the future that next Tuesday you're going to be elevated as well.
Okay.
Right. So that's the predictive analytics. Because now we're using the data that we analyze to predict what's going to happen in the future, looking at past events to predict what's going to happen in the future.
Wow. So like if there was an app that did this
right.
and it could send you like hey, do your breathing exercise. It's Tuesday at 12 o'clock and in 3 hours, your emotional thermometer is going to go up. Is there going to be something like that?
Yes. That's the app that we developed.
That is so cool.
That's exactly what we did. So we developed an app that allows you to do that. And you guys see the ads coming on here. It sponsors this podcast. Now, what you have out there in the marketplace is the beta version. It's free. You guys can utilize it. Absolutely. There is a paid version that's going to be coming in 2024 that has a lot more of these self-assessments that you can do and resources, which Jess and I have been working on really hard to build out and put into there for you guys. That will help you with this predictive analytics. You do these self-assessments every single day at the same time, every single day, and you start to see patterns develop in your life. And then this is the great thing for you, Jess, as a therapist, because if your clients are utilizing this tech, all of that paperwork that you're talking about, having them turn in, that's all inside the tech. And so now you can check in on them whenever you want. And you can click that button and it shows you that patient data. And it's all kept on a HIPAA secure.
I'm blown away right now because I'm thinking of not all the things, like, oh my gosh, how amazing this is going to be for a therapeutic relationship and for the actual growth of some of my clients, but also the selfish side of me of how much easier paperwork and note-taking is going to be with this resource.
And here's the other thing. What's on your patient load? 20 patients? What do you have?
I have about 32 right now.
So 32 patients. It's hard to manage 32 patients and know who needs help and when. Like you have a schedule like once a week, once every 2 weeks, right? To see clients sometimes every day, but you don't know how they're doing. You don't know who needs your help and when. And one of the cool things with our tech, the predictive analytics, is it takes their scores and it weights them. And then it can alert you, hey, this individual, and we based it off the national threat assessment. So we go from green all the way to red, these 5 stages. And as people start to get elevated by their daily wellness checks, it shows you that information in a thermometer style, right? But it's just the person's icon will change color based on where their mental health is. So now in the morning, you can check this and be like, wow, Sally is really elevated today. She's in yellow. She doesn't have an appointment for 3 weeks. Let me schedule in a time just to call and see if I can offer some support. Now you don't have to wait till an individual gets into crisis.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've never been able to be proactive. We've always been reactive to a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
With predictive analytics, utilizing AI, especially with my app that we built it allows you to be proactive for the first time in history. You can be proactive to a mental health crisis.
That's amazing.
Pretty amazing, right?
That's amazing.
Yes. So we are working to put our technology through FDA approval. We were one of the winners of the Scale Health Innovative MedTech Award for 2023. And so in 2024, they're working with us to put us through the FDA approval process. There is really no approval process yet for technology. It's brand new. We talked about this in another episode where they're just starting to write the rules for this. And so we're going to be one of the first ones to go through that process to to move out of the wellness market and into the regulated market. And it's because of this technology that we built. And I got to be honest, I didn't even really think of it. You remember this? You remember it? Do you remember? I didn't think of this. I had a friend who was struggling with suicidal ideations. And I was praying and I said, God, how do I help this guy? My program, my nonprofit works great. But when they're in crisis, I can't help them. I don't know how to help them communicate. And I prayed about it. The next morning I woke up and I had a vision and I sketched it out in a notebook. And that became the blueprint for the technology that we built. But before we built the tech, we built the video. Do you remember the Pop Smoke video?
Yeah.
You were in it. Remember?
Yes.
That video was shot to specification of the vision that I had.
Yeah. Okay.
Every scene. Remember, I was like super crazy with Bo, like, no, you have to film it right here, this angle. They have to go across because that's how I saw it in my mind. And then when
That's the one we did back here?
That's the one we did in the alley. Yeah. Part of Subterfuge's Back Alley Adventures.
Yeah, we got to put that on
the original. You want to see it? Okay, so if you guys stick around to the very end, I'll have Casey throw the original Pop Smoke video in the end.
Watch till the end.
Yeah, it won't be at the very end. It'll be somewhere close to the end.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. But yeah, you'll get to see the original Pop Smoke video starring Bergens over here. And that, when I watched it for the first time, that's when all the research I had done made sense. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is how I build the app to this specification based on what was in that video. Yeah. So the GPS location, the self-assessment,
going to find Davis.
Yeah. The doing the grounding techniques, like all of those things that have been used in the mental health arena for decades, but they were used in these silos. And we took all those silos and we combined them into one super awesome app called QActual. You guys can download it for free and use it right now. Now, remember, it's the beta format. So you've got a ton of upgrades coming in 2024. So if you download it now, it's free and I'll just grandfather you in. But if you download it later, there is going to be a paywall because we're putting a ton more resources into this technology.
Yeah.
All right.
That's exciting.
So yeah, it is kind of exciting, right?
Kind of. Yes. You humble hero, you.
You know what's awesome though, Jess?
That's another shirt. Aaron, the humble hero.
Yes. Humble hero. So we are starting a Shopify account to try and pay for this because this does cost money, what we do here. So if you guys want some cool swag, we'll have some stuff. Yes. Humble hero. I love it. The humble hero shirt. So, but I just thought about that. The app, the technology, you were in that the very first video that I created for the technology before it was even built, when it was just an idea and I was looking for funding. You were in that first video and here we are now. We've moved from the back alley to the janitor closet.
We should do a special in the back alley once.
We should.
With Jesse and
bring the whole crew back.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
After you're a billionaire and we can actually get like real actors to redo it.
Who would play you?
We've talked about this.
Yeah, but not on camera.
The Mockingjay.
Yeah, what's her name?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah,
yes.
She's mine.
Jennifer Lawrence.
I'm not big on stars, but I like her. I like her. All right, let's talk about our tool.
All right. Tool for the toolbox, Jess. What is it?
50% of Americans say that they or a loved one have suffered from mental health crisis. Together, we can change all that. Introducing QActual, a revolutionary new peer-to-peer based mobile application. Personalized to fit your lifestyle, with pinpoint GPS location in times of emergency. Connecting you to your care provider. With QActual, we will move you forward. Download QActual now and visit QActual.com.
Yeah. So the tool for the toolbox that we're going to go over really quickly before we dive into the practical is going to be available online to you guys as well. It's going to be our healthy versus unhealthy coping patterns. And the first box, you're going to kind of just talk about the current issue that you'd like to challenge, or describing the problem that you are dealing with that you would like to unpack. The first box we're going to talk about is unhealthy coping pattern, and then the consequences of that unhealthy coping pattern. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next box is going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about some ideas for healthy coping patterns that we could use, and then the expected outcomes of those healthy coping patterns, and then maybe some barriers to using those healthy coping patterns, so that we touch everything, so that when that barrier comes in, we're not like, oh shoot, I wasn't expecting this, I can't do it anymore.
Dang it.
Yes. So no excuses. Hashtag
no excuses. I think somebody already owns that.
Yeah. Hashtag no excuses for the humble hero.
There we go.
All right. So, I mean, if you're ready, we can go right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. And as always, guys, we put a lot of these on our website, these tools that you guys can use and download. A lot of them are free. Like I said, this is really taken off. We're over 1,000 people right now who are subscribing. So it's really growing. We weren't sure when we started if people were even going to pay attention, but they are. So we're starting to make these things available to you online. Most of these that are out right now are going to be free. As we start to grow and build this, there will be some things that you guys can pay to get, some sets, some things that'll help you, not just, onesie twosie kind of worksheets, but entire packets, entire programs and processes that you can really utilize to make fundamental changes for your mental health. And so we will make that stuff available. So check our website. There's a bunch of stuff on there that can help you guys.
Right. And we're not trying to get rich. We're just trying to help you guys, but we have to pay for this. He has to pay for the humble hero has to pay for it all.
This stuff costs money. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
These lights ain't free.
All right, Aaron, thank you for coming in today for our practical.
Yay.
I just, since we're in this mode now, one thing I like to ask some of my clients is, right now, 0 to 10, 10 being life couldn't be any greater. I'm on top of the world, and 0 being I'm ready to call it quits. Where would you say you're at right now?
It's a little below average, probably about a 4 right now. It's not horrible, but it could use some improvement.
Okay. So if you don't mind, we can talk about some coping skills that might be able to pull you from a 4 to a 6, maybe?
Sure.
Okay. If you were to think about a problem that you're currently dealing with, what would that be?
People not completing their obligations, which then makes me carry a heavier burden with the things that I have to do because they're not covering their end.
And when you say people not completing their obligations, tell me a little bit more about that.
I hired a contractor to do some work on another project that I'm working on, and I depended on them to take care of this one piece as I was developing these other pieces, had other things moving, and I came back to check on them and they hadn't done any of it, like 0. So now I'm starting from 0. I have to take this project for them because they cannot do it. It's been months. They cannot do it. It's obvious. So now I have to take that on, and I have a very short window to do a tremendous amount of work, and I'm going to end up coming out of pocket. It's going to cost me a lot more time and money to fix this thing that they or to create this thing that they didn't create. And so incredibly stressful. It's going to cost me a lot of money. And if I hadn't used them, I would have had this problem solved months ago, and I wouldn't be worried about it. But since I depended on them to do this because they said they could, I paid them a bunch of money. They didn't show up and didn't show out, didn't have 0 result for the 6 months and the money that I've given them. Now I have to do it myself.
Right. And one thing that we've uncovered before in previous sessions is one of your core values being dependable. And especially for you as a human being and for the way you run your business, under promising and over delivering. And so when you give that, you have an expectation to get that. And so when that obligation is not just under delivered, but not delivered, I could see how that would really raise a challenge for you.
Yeah, absolutely. My janitorial company is called Reliable Commercial Cleaning.
Yeah.
And I named it that because I was not reliable when I started it, but that was a value that was important to me. And so I put it in the name of my company because I knew I needed to be reliable if people were going to want to work with me.
Yeah. And so because this kind of setback is tied to such a strong core value of yours, this is where some of our negative coping skills, some of our negative coping patterns can present themselves. So what is an unhealthy coping way that like you would want to just, you naturally would go to?
Right. So there's a couple of things that I would do in the past, which would be number one, to call and flame them, right? And just let them have it. And then to post a bunch of negative reviews about them, tell everybody I knew, about how terrible they were, and just really light them up. Another thing that I used to do, which is funny because I look back now and it's kind of funny, but I used to break things, like literally on purpose. I would go buy furniture at Goodwill and just have it in my garage. And so when I felt like I was going to explode, I would just go out there, put on a pair of gloves and grab a hammer and just smash that dresser or table or whatever it was, just to complete smithereens until I just couldn't even pick up the hammer anymore. And then as I was exhausted, I would clean up the mess to throw it away. And that would help me. It really would help me get that anger and frustration out where it wasn't hurting anybody, but it definitely scared the heck out of my family. I mean, they knew what I was doing, but they were all just like, oh, Dad's in the garage again, It wasn't the healthiest, but it's what I had at the time. I've learned a lot better coping skills now, but in the beginning, that's just what I had to do to survive. Otherwise, I was doing that to somebody. And so that's how I got out the anger and frustration. It's funny because the first time that I did that, I didn't even think about it. I don't remember what it was, but there was this dehumidifier that we had in the house, and it was always causing problems. Like it would work, it wouldn't work. It was just always a problem, this dehumidifier.
It was not reliable.
It was not reliable. It was worthless, this thing. It worked when it wanted to. And I was so frustrated about something at work. I don't remember what it was. I just walked by and I saw the dehumidifier and it wasn't working. And I was just like, nothing works. And I punched this thing. And when I hit this dehumidifier, it exploded into a million pieces. And my wife and daughter were like, what just happened? And I just hit it one time and it obliterated this thing. And I thought, oh, that worked. That felt good. And I just started buying furniture and putting it in the garage so I could smash it when I needed to. Not the healthiest thing in the world, but that's
not the unhealthiest.
Right. But that's how I got to that.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I got to that. It was like, oh, yes, swift and brutal violence makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Let's do it in a constructive way. Well, destructive, but not, damaging.
Yeah. And they have like thrashing rooms that you can go to. And
they do. For guys like me.
Well, let's go back to the unhealthy coping of like just unleashing Aaron's fire on them publicly. What would some of the consequences of that be?
I would damage relationships for sure. I would also look really bad. Even if I was right, I would still look really bad. And I've realized this, that just because you can do the right thing in the wrong way. You can be right and then execute totally wrong. And then you look terrible. So I try really hard not to do that anymore because I used to a lot, especially on social media.
I remember that. All right. Well, good. Thank you for sharing that with me and your past failures. It takes a lot to be able to talk about that. If we were to think of a healthy coping pattern that you could use now for this specific situation, what could that look like?
I have to pivot. And so I talk about this in business. I should write a chapter of a book called The Art of the Pivot. Like when things aren't going your way, when things aren't working out, a lot of people would quit or get frustrated or flame out like I was talking about. Mm-hmm. But instead I just pivot. So, okay, this is a problem. I need to go around it. I need to go over it, or I need to go through it. I got to pivot. I'm still going to accomplish the mission. I just have to pivot. So if you think about it in the military terms, it'd be flanking your enemy. If you're doing a direct attack and you're not getting anywhere, you've got to push troops to the right or to the left to outflank the enemy. So same thing. I just got to flank this problem. So a positive coping skill would be thinking, number one, stop, look, and listen. Stop what I'm doing, look at the surroundings, listen to my body. What can I do different to still accomplish my goal? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did this morning. What can I do different? And I talked to my team about it. We quickly created a small little plan. We've got to still look at the finances to see financially how we can make that work. But we have some semblance of a plan, which helps me because now I've created at least a direction I can go so my brain's not spinning out of control with all this anger. Mm-hmm. I focus that energy into something positive, which is creating a new plan to pivot.
What are some barriers to that?
Money and time. They don't make your job easy, do I, Jess?
No. What is the expected outcome of this newer coping mechanism?
The expected outcome for me is that hopefully, not only will I feel better, but hopefully I can model this for my employees and my friends, that when these things happen, that there are positive ways that you can manage them and handle them. Hopefully I can exemplify that and I can model that for them. Mm-hmm. So that way, when they come across these issues in their life, which they will, they'll be able to remember this and reflect back on it and make good choices.
Yeah. And thinking about what kind of effect that could have on other people.
Right. Because if I'm modeling being angry and run people's name through the mud and all these different things, that's the environment that I'm going to create is a toxic environment. And now I'm going to be teaching other people to do that, which is going to undermine all the other mental health work that I'm doing in the world. Mm-hmm.
So what will you be teaching people with this new coping way?
I'm going to be teaching them how to make good choices, how to be able to pivot, how to be able to look at a problem. And instead of focusing on the problem, you focus on the solution. What's the goal you want to hit? And this direction is not working. So what other directions can you go? Mm-hmm. How can you still what choices can you make to still achieve the outcome that you want? Maybe just in a different method than you thought possible before.
Yeah. And what have you learned through this process?
I've learned to trust but verify. I should have been on top of that company a lot more. I should have checked in with them a lot sooner. I should have built safeguards in place to prevent me from being so close to the finish line and having nothing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just trusted that, we got it. This is working out. These things are happening. Mm-hmm. But I didn't verify it. And so that's my fault. I should have verified more frequently the results that they said they were getting.
Working with new
working
establishments or companies or organizations. But those that you already know are reliable, not so much.
Right, correct. Right. Yeah, if they've already established a pattern of reliability, I need to check on them a lot less. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with new companies coming in, they can talk a big game, but if they can't show up, then that's what you have to do. You have to really pay attention. And you got to hire slow, fire fast. I should have, looking back, after 90 days and they had 0, I should have just let them go and moved in another direction. I should have pivoted a lot sooner. And so I've got to be better at that. I want to believe the best in people. I want to give them an opportunity and a shot, but not at the expense of my mental health. So in the future, I will be firing people a lot faster when it comes to contractors if they're not measuring up to my standard, then I'm going to let them go. Because if you want to work with me, you have to hold yourself to a high standard.
Yeah. Well, it's not that the expectations weren't clearly communicated.
Right.
And so it's not unreasonable to expect somebody in business to hold up their agreed upon execution plan. How nice is it though to like be able to look back and reflect on reliable commercial cleaning and know that you're not that
unreliable person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really good that even though this company failed in their obligation, I'm still going to make it work. I'm going to come out of pocket to make this thing work because that's my name. And even if it costs me time and money and I lose money on this deal, it's fine because I'm going to keep my integrity intact.
Yeah, that's great. And talking about it a little bit, and there's no expectations in an answer. Where would you put yourself 0 to 10?
Yeah, I think I probably would be up to the 6. I think I was before. I just hadn't realized it because we didn't walk through these things. I'd already put all these things in place, and the things that we had talked about, I had already executed on them. I just hadn't given myself the time to reflect on it, I guess.
Okay.
And so this was a great time of reflection. I know I need to pivot. I have pivoted. These are the things that I'm going to do. I know it's going to cost me time and money, but that's okay. I've already created this pivot, this pathway to achieve the goal, just in a different way.
Yeah.
I just hadn't had time to reflect on that and let my brain process that. And so once we did this exercise, I processed it and was like, oh, actually, I don't feel. That's how I felt the beginning of the day. But before we even came into pre-show, I had already solved this issue and had a direction to go. My brain hadn't caught up to it yet.
Right. And also reflecting back on the way you probably used to react versus respond.
Yeah, that was a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. And that helps with the confidence and processing and reality of being reliable.
It makes me feel like a better leader.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, that's good because you're a great leader.
Unintentional outcome of the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, that was great. Thank you for, again, being vulnerable and willing to be my therapy dummy.
Yeah, it is. And you guys don't really get it. Like we don't go in depth on this stuff. She tells me a little bit like, hey, this is what we're going to do. I know a very general idea, and then we just go into it. And so you guys get to see real life. Like this is what's really happening. This is what a therapy session really looks like. So for you guys who've never experienced therapy before, or a little afraid, or maybe had a negative experience in therapy, and Jess talked about this early on, go back, try somebody different, try another method, because it can turn out really, really well. So you guys are seeing a real mini therapy session that's going on right now with a current problem that's really happening in my life. And we do that because we want to break down barriers for you guys to go get help, to go see therapists, to invest in your mental health, like we talked about. So Jess, you had something that you wanted to share with the audience.
Yeah. And just because we're talking so much about, this mental health crisis in America and healthy, unhealthy coping, one scripture that I really love to go to is found in Psalm 94:19. And if we take this lovely multi-translational translation, whatever you want to call it, Holy Bible, it says in Psalm 94:19, in the multitude of my anxieties within me, your comforts delight my soul. And so if you don't really know what that means or how that works, we'd love to chat with you offline about how the Lord really has been the centerpiece for both of our ownership of growth and overcoming a lot of these obstacles. And that really, the anxieties within me, your comforts delight my soul. And so that's true for me. And I know it's true for you.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started to study the brain-body connection and read all these medical journals, I was also reading the Bible for the first time. And I'm reading these things together. I'm saying, wow, this is the same stuff. Science is proving what Scripture is telling us. It was an incredible journey for me. And I wasn't a Christian before. I didn't grow up in a Christian household. I was learning these things together. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And so no matter where your faith journey is, Jew or Gentile, Buddhist, Muslim, atheist, spiritual, agnostic, any one of those, everybody can respect the Bible as a great historical document at the very least. And there is incredible wisdom in this book that's being proven, quantified by modern science. And so no matter where your faith journey is, you can still look to these holy scriptures for great wisdom. And while you're there, if you find your pathway to Jesus, amen. That's incredible. But there's still immense wisdom in this book. It is the greatest selling book of all time. Incredible ancient wisdom here that still holds true today. And if you're ever at one of my lectures, you hear me speak or read one of my books, I make these comparisons all the time, and I prove it step by step by step. How science proves scripture true time and time again. It's incredible. And every time that I find a new one, I'm just as excited as I found the first one.
Yeah.
And it says this about the gospel. It's incredible. It says this. It says that the gospel, which is the good news, which is scripture, is like a treasure that was hidden in a field. And one day a man went walking in the field and he found this treasure. And when he found it, he buried it. He went home and sold everything that he had to buy the land. That's the wisdom in scripture. That's the gospel. And that's been true in my life, where I have sold everything that I have to chase after the wisdom and the relationship with Jesus that I found in scripture.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
So as always, we strive to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. I'm Sergeant Q.
And I'm Doc Jess, and we're out.